Evening, Judy Brown, 1100 Northwest 128 Terrace. I'm stand in support of this item on the agenda. Great cities are defined by their great parks. North Miami is a great city, but we like great parks. So I'm hoping that you all will pass this resolution because we have met several times with the Homeowners Coalition in pursuit of this, getting some type of resolution with this park. This is not the first time it's come before the council. So, and not only that, we really need to look at all of our parks here in the city and see what we can do to make these parks better for our residents. Thank you.
Gene Marcellus, 1325 Northeast 125 Street, and I also support that resolutions because that $5 million for was Park, that's money that was approved when I was a councilman here for was Park, for a water park. And for that money, still here and fighting. I also, like Laura did, I talked to Commissioner Money's team regarding that money. I told him, please, why you guys don't vote the money and approve the money for the city of North Miami? What he told me, that the same thing. He told Laura, if we get the resolution done, and when it come before me, I'll do all my best to put it on the county agenda. Please, tonight, it's I think the ball is in your corner right now. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for acknowledge the citizens. They have the roles they can play on that situation also. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Karen DeLeon, 1935 South Hibiscus Drive. And speaking on behalf of your Parks Commission, we ask you, please pass this so we can get moving. I think it's been one of the most depressing things to sit on Parks Commission and see that piece of land not developed. Thank you.
Oh, the public hearing is now closed.
Next question.
We come to the dais for further discussions.
Mr. Mayor, if you allow me, I have no doubt that we will pass the resolution and we will definitely, our county commissioner will, support it. Without any doubt, I know it's gonna happen. It's just the amount of time. But I have a couple of questions, for you, Mr. Manager. So the county, portion is 5 million. What is the school board, portion?
It's 3.5 million,
That's their contribution, 3.5. And what is ours?
2 million.
So for a total of 9.5 or 10 million?
10.5.
10.5 million. Okay, perfect. Thank you. If there's can I make a motion?
No, what I was gonna say, Mr. Mayor, and in regards to Mayor Burns, it's not like the school board failed to do its part. About 5 years ago, they came here and they said they have $3.5 million for that project. And when I see the plan, and I feel like the community deserves better, that's why we turned the $3.5 million project to a $10.5 million project. Thank you.
Can I make a motion to move the item?
Second,
Yes.
if you make the motion, and I second.
Yes, I'll make the motion.
I have a
Mr. Clark.
motion. I have a motion made by Councilman Zume to approve tab D. The motion was seconded by Councilman Bieneme. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab E. Proposed resolution of the mayor and city council.
Can I make a request like that within a month or so for the manager to bring us an update as to what's
When it's
the
gonna be on the
response?
agenda.
When it's gonna be on, well, it should
As
be on
quick
the
as tomorrow, we're
agenda.
gonna you should send it as quick as tomorrow.
Yeah, send it as quick as
Resolution.
tomorrow. Yeah, as
Soon
early as tomorrow, and then so the public can know when it's gonna be on the agenda for them to.
We'll go.
As soon as me and my esteemed clerk over there get that item done, it'll be in hand delivered.
That's next to
Yeah,
his
return
house.
receipt. You wanted return receipt.
Tab E, proposed resolution of the mayor and city
do you
council of the city of North Miami, Florida, appointing members to the Downtown Action Plan Advisory Committee in accordance with Chapter 29, Article 2, Division 4 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. That was tab E.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tanya Wilson Sejour with Community Planning and Development. The request before you is for a resolution requesting approval for the recommended nominations to the Downtown Action Plan Advisory Committee. The board may recall back in 2014, the DAPAC was created as a part of the Downtown Concept Plan. They've been active and have been in existence since then. Tonight, we're asking for approvals of the nominations that are listed in the staff report. I'm going to read the names into the record. Kevin Arrieta, Dave Burney, Estamine Dorsey, Reynold Filzami, Sam Jean, Adriana Martinez, Michael McDermott, Sarah McDevitt, and Paula Villegas. These are the recommendations that have been submitted based on applications received by staff. We're asking for approval of the resolution this evening.
She's on. She's on.
If the council has any questions.
Okay, yeah, this is it. Okay, public hearing is open on the item.
Jessica Alston, 1140 Northwest 125 Street, Sunkist Grove. It's not clear from what was stated in that, what was published, where these people live. I think it's very important that people who serve in the city live in the city. And I would like for, if any of those people who've been nominated do not live in the city, that their name be rescinded. We don't want developers to develop the city. We want our own community to develop our city. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michelle Togno, and I'm at 1193 North Bay Shore Drive. I do agree with her on this, and I also feel that it's the same people on the same board. It's all the same people. I think we need to change. Remember the guy that was here at the meeting and stood there and said, "What about me? What about me? What about me?" I think we need to change. I think the city is on a move and need to change. The same people are going on every board in the city. We need a change.
Are you on any board?
I am not on any board.
Do you want to get appointed to Board of Adjustment tonight?
Yes,
I
sir.
will appoint you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Clerk, can you get her name for me?
Michelle. Michelle. Oh, Jim, you're on too many boards.
Jim Garrett.
Jim is
Oh.
on too many boards. Oh, God.
Hey, you never see me walk like Truman.
It's gonna be a long night.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a long night. The spirit of Joe Wild is in me tonight.
Oh, God. Let the man
Jim
rest in
Garrett,
peace.
11610 North Bay Shore Drive. I think we have a lot of talented people, especially new people coming into the city, younger people, younger than 56 years old, not 60 years old. I think we need to have a resolution. There's some board members who are on 3 boards.
Can we speak to this tonight,
Yeah, to
though? I
this,
get what
please.
you're saying about too many people on the same boards, but Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Garrett, let that be a standalone thing to bring forward. We're gonna be here all night if we're now gonna open up the can of worms and talk about there being too many people on the boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just, but this is a prime example, the downtown development. I mean, it's,
No.
I only see
I-
one
yeah,
name
I
to
don't
me
even
that's
see no-
familiar of being on
exactly.
multiple boards of
I
this
don't know
group.
what they're talking about. Yeah, this is, and we
All
debated
right.
this a lot.
One more comment. Speaking of boards, Laura Hill, 130, 75 Griffin Boulevard. I'm sorry, I don't want to annoy you, but we did have a situation where Board of Adjustment was not able to get quorum because we're also
Exactly.
missing board members.
Board
So we need
members,
some
yes.
people appointed and to go through the
process.
attendance sheets to see who's just not showing up. So thank you very much.
All right. Public hearing is now closed on the item.
Mr. Mayor, we have a problem where we can't even get quorums in boards. So if somebody want to serve on a board and you're going to show up, by all means, I don't think we too much care who's on what board, whatever the case. Let us know. It's an application process. It's open. I mean, if you want to be on a board, let us know. It's not that serious, really. We welcome it. We welcome it. I move. Yeah, we have a lot of vacant. They cannot even meet. So if the same people want to, if they showing up, let it, I make a motion, we move this item as is, as recommended.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Nazume to approve tab E. The motion was seconded by Councilman Galvin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab F, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager and city attorney to execute a fourth option to renew professional services agreement in substantially the attached form between the city of North Miami and Brown & Brown of Florida, INC, DBA, TR Jones and Company for the continuation of Access Workers' Compensation Insurance Coverage services as required by Florida law at the annualized premium amount of $155,851, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Karen Muir, and I'm the Risk Management Director. And basically, this is a second of a 2-year guaranteed renewal premium, and at the same terms and conditions. And nothing really changed. We have a 3.7% increase in the premium over the expiring, and that was just basically because of the payroll increase, slight payroll increase. So nothing else changed. All terms, conditions are the same as the expiring policy.
All right. Public hearing is now open on the item. Anyone who wishes to be heard on the item, please come to the mic. I see none, hear none. Public hearing is therefore closed.
Move approval.
I just have a quick question. Ms. Mayor, Mr. Manager, the difference between this one and the public insurance. So this is something that's required by law, the workers' compensation insurance?
This is the excess workers' compensation, and it covers the employees who are injured in the line of duty on the job. So employees.
Okay.
All right, I have
And
a
it's an
motion.
excess policy.
Okay.
I had a motion made by Councilman Galvin. The motion was seconded by Vice Mayor Keys, and that was to approve tab F. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. We're going to take H before we take G. So right now, we're going to read tab H. Tab H, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, appointing Jose Smith, a member of the Florida Bar, to serve as special magistrate for code enforcement hearings, and authorizing the city manager and city attorney to execute a 1-year letter of agreement with Mr. Smith in accordance with Section 21-51 North Miami Code of Ordinances as amended, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Mr. Mayor, pursuant to your code of, or the city's code of ordinance, chapter 21, the city council appoints special magistrates. Up to 3 special magistrates may be appointed by the council. There's no procedure given in the code. The only requirements for a special magistrate is that they be a retired Florida judge or be a member in good standing of the Florida Bar for at least 5 years and have a background in local government. So there is no process. In this case,
You say retired judge?
no, it's or.
Oh,
Retired judge or a member of the Florida Bar. In this case, we received a resume from Councilman Galvin, who requested that we put this on the agenda for your consideration, and that's what we've done tonight.
but this is the first time we're doing that.
No, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't here before when they did. I don't know. We currently have two special magistrates.
Yeah.
I know when I first got here, there had been an attempt to do a procurement, and I know there was some issues with the procurement. I think we didn't have the full advice of the board to do the procurement, so that never went through. So we went through the process. I think during that process, we lost one of the special magistrates. So we've been down to 2 special magistrates. I know we're right now in the process of rewriting Chapter 21, and there may be a need for more special magistrates, but up to now, the 2 special magistrates that we've had have been handling all the hearings. We may be coming to you asking for more special magistrates, so we may actually ask, as we do the Chapter 21, to either come up with new procedures for amending, for nominating special magistrates, or actually increasing it. But as I said, tonight, we have this item in front of us because we've gotten the request from the council.
But what's the procedure? I mean, moving forward, is all candidates for special magistrates are gonna come before the council? I mean,
Yes, we always do that. But I don't know if there's
Sure.
a written procedure. Okay.
There's no procedure.
Can you draft a resolution or something that would, or you could meet up with us, well, specifically me. I don't have any problem with not specifically tonight, but just moving forward. I don't mind the way it's being done, but at least once they get it, at least we will get a copy from you, Mr. Manager, whoever it is, at least we'll get a chance to, I saw it on the agenda, and then I got a couple of phone calls, and that was basically, at least I would have had the opportunity to sit and talk like we would do. If we were to make that, interview and do that. I would like, if that's if we don't have a process moving forward, if that could be part of the process, if we are gonna do that.
Are we gonna open this public hearing, or are we
Yeah,
gonna?
I'm
discuss?
sorry, yeah.
I mean, if it's the pleasure of the board, we can just research how others are done and create a process.
I just thought,
Okay,
well,
no, I'm just,
yeah,
based on your directive right now.
yes.
yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, so before we go forward, we have to open it to the public. So this agenda was published when, on Thursday? Yeah, the agenda was published on Thursday, so this item was on it, so the public had enough time to research Mr. Jose Smith and to see whether he's still barred by the Florida. I don't know if we have a bio on the agenda or CV.
No, there's nothing, no resolution.
Okay, so
The resume should have been provided as part of the resolution.
There's
It's not on the
nothing,
link, but I didn't.
there's nothing attached.
Well, I see Mr. Smith is here. If you'd like to.
well, I guess he would speak and then we open it to the public. Yeah, go ahead. No, I don't know. I don't know how we're gonna be moving forward. So before I don't know. No, wait, hold up.
We,
Yes,
yes.
Well,
Or go.
well, the attorney is already here. I mean, he's at the mic, so at least by courtesy, we
he'd be
should
part of your
allow
public
him
hearing.
to.
He'd be part of your public hearing.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Smith. Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Mm.
members of the City Council. Privileged to be here. I submitted my application, my resume. I've been involved in public service for over 25 years. I was city attorney in the city of Miami Beach for 8 years. I served the city of North Miami Beach for 4.5 years. I've been in numerous boards and committees with the county and other cities. I served this community as an appointed member of your city attorney selection committee. I can't really wait to get started. I'm so excited about serving your city. I've been watching the special magistrate meetings that take place here. I'm very familiar with the process. I reformed the special magistrate system in the city of North Miami Beach, brought in 2 new magistrates who are much more efficient and do a much better work of serving the residents than what was there before. And I'm here to answer any questions, but I'm looking forward to serving you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. You may have a seat. Well, I'm sorry. You want to ask questions
Are
now?
we gonna have public hearing, or are we gonna?
This is public hearing, so do we want to reserve questions to ask him after public hearing?
Why don't we do that so we can get that over with and we can.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Jim Garrett, 11610 North Bay Shore Drive. I've seen Mr. Smith as a city commissioner in Miami Beach, city attorney in North Miami Beach. I think he will bring professional integrity, respect, and connections, and will add value to the residents and to the administration staff of the city of North Miami. He'll be added resource for city attorney. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Kenneth East, 776 Northeast 125th Street. I happen to have served with Mr. Smith on the selection committee for the city attorney for North Miami. I know of him for many years. He's an esteemed gentleman and a first-class litigator, and he has an abundance of knowledge when it comes to municipal law, and he's exactly what we need. He's a man of integrity, knowledge, a member of the Florida Bar. I mentioned before, I'm a member of the North Miami Bar. I've been in every bar in town. But I think he would be an excellent addition. Not I don't think, I know that he would be an excellent addition and give our citizens a fair shake up there. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Burns, 2065 Alameda Drive. We would be quite fortunate to get the talent of Mr. Jose Smith. As he said, being the city attorney during the booming times of Miami Beach, being the city attorney during the booming times of North Miami Beach that are taking place now, and also he served as a council member, so he's been on both sides of the diocese. And so I think if he can be added to the rotation of our additional special masters, that only helps resolving the issues faster for our residents and gives you more flexibility on the scheduling of the special master hearings. And you couldn't find a more fitting person to jump in to help out if we need it. Thank you very much.
Public hearing is now closed. Vice Mayor.
Okay, to our city attorney through the mayor. We have been through this about a year ago. We were looking for, and I'd asked you, I was pushing to, let's get some new magistrates, let's do that, let's do a bid. Let's do an RFP, RFQ, whatever, for magistrates. Have we opened anything? Do we have anything open?
That was the process that we brought before. We had the issue, and then when we went back to the code, there was no, the code was specific about you guys designating the
We
the
vote, we
magistrate.
we don't pick magistrates.
yes.
No,
Yeah,
we
you
don't.
do.
We don't pick them, we vote on them. We've always had a city attorney bring,
That's not in the code. So
It's not in the code.
what happened here is there was an overlap. When I got here, that process had already begun. We went through the whole process. There was selection made. I asked the question, how did this happen? How did we get to this position? How did we come here? How did we get to a procurement? And what I was told, there was one council member had asked to do this. And I said, well, is that the process? And it wasn't the process from the past, and it hadn't been the board that decided to do that. It had been one council member who had asked to do that. So that's what stalled the procurement, and then we never came up with another process. So
we do need a process.
yeah,
We
so
need- we
you
need a
all
fair
have to choose.
process. We need to go out to
you
the
can
public.
direct us to come up with a process, but
Yeah, but
I don't know what the process. Before I got here, I don't know what the process was. I don't know if it was.
I
the
proved
Our
to, I
attorney would
proved
bring
we
people
already
to-
before, and I'm pretty much sure Scott did the same. The city attorney is the one that did put the interview, whatever, the application out there. You evaluate the candidate and you bring it to us for recommendation. And you recommend the person and we approve it. This is the way it's been
Mr. Mayor,
done.
I still have a question.
It's not necessary. You wasn't there. I said, this is the last time we did it. This is how we did it.
Yeah.
That's what I said. You wasn't there.
No, I'm not saying I was there. What I'm saying, not necessarily I agree with that process. That's what I said. I'm not saying that I was there.
You understand that West Mayor has not yet.
I haven't finished.
Oh, go ahead.
No?
I've just been interrupted. It's okay. I have a question for Mr. Smith, if that's okay.
Me?
The other
Oh,
Mr.
you mean
Smith.
the-
The applicant.
Mr. Smith, not the doctor.
Mr., right. Mr. Smith Esquire.
Yes, ma'am.
So you've been a city attorney for City of Miami Beach.
Yes, ma'am.
City of North Miami Beach.
Yes.
Why did you submit your application to a council person and not our city attorney?
I think I did both. I think that I copied Councilman Galvin and also, and I believe the manager as well, when I submitted my my resume. But my original contact was with Councilman Galvin, who I've known for a long time.
And if I can provide a little clarity and insight, he reached out saying, do you guys have any openings for a special magistrate? And so I reached out to staff and said, do we have openings? And they said, have him forward his resume. I forwarded his resume, and it's now on the agenda. So it wasn't a case where I called him and said, hey, I want to
No,
get you
I
in on his special
didn't.
magistrate. Hey, Jeff, put this on the agenda. I want this on the agenda right now. Didn't happen at all like that. It was very organic. He asked, I asked, the request was send in the resume. I forwarded the resume.
I would have called the city attorney and, sent my resume and said, do you have that? I mean, that's something, especially being a city attorney, I would think, or wonder why you didn't go to our city attorney to do that.
We happen to have personally known each other for 20 years, somewhere in there.
At least.
Yeah.
Okay. No matter what the outcome is, I'm not really thrilled with the procedure. This is not a personal thing. Would love to have you. I'd love you to submit a bid. I have no resume here. I have just a resolution, no vetting, no references, and which is what we do when we hire a city attorney. We have none of that. So I'd welcome you to do it through a procedure, and I also hope that our council will give direction this evening to start a procedure so that we can get bids and there's a proper way to do this. I wouldn't begin to go pick, I know a lot of attorneys, I'm an attorney. I wouldn't just take one of my friends and say, here, or if they call me, here, I want this person to be a magistrate.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Can I comment, Mr. Mayor, on the procedure that I'm accustomed to following when selecting special magistrate? Would that be appropriate?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I mean, that would be, this task would totally be given to our city attorney. If we were to give directions tonight, and if we were to decide that we're not going to vote tonight and ask our city attorney to, I'm sure he's very well prepared, and this is a very academic attorney. He's been through different large companies, and I'm sure that he's competent enough to come up with some kind of procedure if he is directed to do so.
Mayor, I actually was surprised that our code reads the way it does, which is why, as I said, we're going through the chapter 21 right now and rewriting it. This is something that we're looking at. I am used to special magistrates coming through the city attorney's office, at least a recommendation coming from the city attorney's office to the council, and then you all voting. It just so happens the way our code reads, and there are many codes that read the same way where they just don't set it up. And unfortunately, I didn't really have a turnover when I became the city attorney, so I honestly do not know what you all did before with special magistrates, which is why we're here today.
Well, it used to come from our city attorney. She would bring him to us, bring the magistrate, and we would vote. So.
I'm not really in a position to talk.
Okay, so
Nor is hers the best lead to follow.
I knew that was.
we haven't heard from the public yet.
No, we did. We did.
We did?
Yes.
Well,
Can I?
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was a genuine ask And if the council is not comfortable for some reason because of the lack of procedure, I don't mind if you want to go back and do it a different way. I think we have an excellent opportunity to have Mr. Smith as a magistrate. We have a lot of code cases that come forward. It would be great to have somebody else on the bench to go to if one of the other magistrates can't attend, and rather than canceling a whole slate of hearings, we had somebody else we could bring into. I think very highly of Mr. Smith, and hope that you'll vote in favor of him tonight, understanding that we need to put a procedure in place going forward.
Mr. Mayor, I don't particularly, either way that the council would go, I don't have any problem, but I also don't have any problem in supporting the nomination tonight. Obviously, there's not a process, so go through the attorney's office or going through, I don't really, too much, I would have liked to see a resume before, so I wouldn't not necessarily like the attorney to tell me that these are the folks, whatever the case is. If we have to select that person, I would like to have at least talk to and meet with that person, et cetera, prior to that. If there's no process, then obviously we can't really question the procedure because there's no process in place. I am more than welcome, and I think is it the city manager or the city attorney I direct, if we could put a process together for next time, we does not, and that process need to include either the resume come to you and you have us meet with these folks, not necessarily you going through them, but let us, if we're gonna be selecting them, that's something like that I would like to see, but I don't have any problem voting tonight if we have to. If we need to delay it, I don't have any issues with that as well.
Mr. Benjamin, nothing?
No.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Again, the key thing is that there is no process, so no rule has been broken. And philosophically speaking, administratively, that doesn't go, and nothing that's being done here pretty much is going against any norm or any standard. Typically, had I not been called by someone today, and who pretty much told me something about Attorney Smith, I would have voted no tonight because this is my first time meeting you, and I don't have a CV in front of me. I don't know whether you're still barred. I don't know. I mean, I'm trusting. But I don't know. But you can't blame me because I simply do not know. I'm trusting my city attorney. That's why we hired you and paid you big bucks, to make sure that you do the right thing. And I'm trusting that you vetted, Mr. Smith properly, and that that.
Did you do that?
And also the person who called me, he thinks very highly of you, and he had a lot of great things to say about you. So because when you know someone and you respect that person, and that person in turn respects somebody else because of their moral or or academic standing, so you go along with the person that you trust. So for that reason, I am voting for you, and that's pretty much it.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask, Mr. Attorney, you shake your head when he say vetted. We abide by your decision tonight.
No, wait, no.
Uh-huh.
There is no procedure.
No,
if
we
you're
understand
if you're
that.
asking me if Mr. Smith is qualified, I can tell you, yes, he's
Okay,
he's
then that's
qualified based on the requirements of the code. He is a good member in standing.
You
of the Florida
check with the
Bar.
Florida Bar, you know that he's
It's
barred.
online. Anyone can check. He's
Okay.
he's a good standing member of the Florida Bar, and he has a background in local government. I have worked with him in his city. I can attest that everything he said tonight is true. So
Okay, we need a
there's
motion.
no
We need a
question that
motion, please.
He's qualified.
With my honor, I would like to nominate, pass the motion in favor of Mr. Smith this evening.
Do I have a second to Councilman Galvin's motion to approve tab H?
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab H. The motion was seconded by Councilman DeZume. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Item passes with a 3-2 vote. Tab G, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the city manager and the city attorney to revoke short-term rental status for the property located at 12459 Keystone Boulevard, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Mayor and council, as you know, sorry. Sorry, I pulled up the, I gotta pull this up.
Mhm.
Okay, so as you know, in June 10th, 2008, the city adopted ordinance number 1255, which essentially banned short-term rentals in single-family residences throughout the city. Later on, in October 26, 2009, there was a letter by then city manager Clarence Patterson that grandfathered in 6 properties. Right now, it's down to 5 properties. I believe one of them was taken off the list when the property was sold, so it was no longer a non-conforming use. So there are 5 properties that are grandfathered in and are considered legal short-term rentals in the city. Recently, we've had a problem with one of the properties. The address, and there was one of the residents brought this up. We gave notice. Actually, we brought this to the council's attention. I believe the last meeting. After some consideration, I think I said it on the record. I felt that there should have been some notice to the resident or to the property owner, and so we pulled it off the agenda. We actually gave them notice that we were doing this. We sent them by registered mail. We got a receipt. They did receive notice back on September 4th. We actually got a call in the office, so they knew about the issue. On the agenda, the property address is 12459 Keystone Boulevard. It was brought to our attention by one of the residents that there is no Keystone Boulevard. However, that's how it reads. It reads on the letter giving the short-term rental. So if there's an issue about the notice, then if we want to argue that they weren't given notice because the address was wrong, then they probably also did not have short-term rental status because it was also wrong on the original letter. So I just want to get that out of the way. So essentially, what happened here is I've got police reports back in June. There was a disturbance at the property. There was another disturbance later on. At least on one occasion, there were shots fired at the property. We were, Councilman Galvin, I believe Councilwoman Keys also came to us and asked, is there anything that we can do, because we're getting calls from the residents about what do we do about this property. There were parties going on, there was shooting going on, and this was an ongoing issue. My office looked at it. This is really something new. We haven't had to revoke anyone's short-term rental. So this is something brand new. Others may come and say this is not the right procedure. There really has been no procedure. What we're doing here is essentially under the police powers of the city. You've got an issue, a safety issue, a crime issue. As a city body, our position is you may remove this. Others may argue. At the end of the day, it may be a court that finally makes a decision whether we could do this or not. But if there's a situation where you all feel that safety of our residents are at stake, then this is what we need to do. You all vote on it, and let the chips fall where they may. We'll deal with whatever legal ramifications later. And that's essentially it. And I don't know if the councilwoman or councilman want to make a presentation at all.
This property, there were, I guess, 5 or 6 properties. We passed a short-term rental, from what I understand, back in 2009. Our city manager took it upon himself. I don't know if it was approved by council or not, wrote a letter saying, well, you've been doing this, go ahead. This particular property has one of them was taken away because he combined 2 properties, he expanded the use. So that's gone. This particular property has been sold. We discussed it on the sale, talked about whether once it's sold, it could continue to be grandfathered. My thought is if you have a non-conforming use, you have to abide by the laws and the codes, and having parties and having shootings, and I mean, it's not pleasant when you have children in a residential neighborhood. This is like 2 streets away from my house, and you've got guns going off. That's not abiding by the law. So had a discussion with my city attorney. He feels that we're within our right to revoke this letter. It's not even a law or any kind of easement we gave this house. It was a letter. It's been used for 9 years, but it's been sold. Residents are just besides themselves with that property. So I'm in favor of revoking it this evening and take our chances. And thank you, Councilman Galvin, for putting it and getting this resolution.
All right. Is the property owner in the audience?
You have to open up for public comment.
Yeah, public hearing is open, so you can.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Carter McDowell with Bills and Sunberg, 1450 Brickell Avenue. I'm here representing North Miami Homes LLC, which is the property owner. This is all from our perspective.
Mayor, if I may, since he does represent the property owner, I'd like to allow you to give him more than the 2 minutes allotted normally.
I would only agree to giving everybody whatever exact time he takes, we give to everybody. I think that's only fair.
No, we can't do that. I mean, we have to limit to we have to go with the 2 minutes.
Considering this may end up in litigation, and I don't want there to be.
Yeah, but we didn't list it as a quasi judicial.
If I may, considering it may end up in litigation, I don't want there to be an issue of due process. So I would give him this due process. The property owners here represented. I know that's partly what he's going to say tonight, is that they didn't get notice. So I would recommend allowing him to speak. That may help us later on in the lawsuit.
So, if I may, as Councilwoman correctly said, there was an ordinance that was passed back in 2009 that limited and outlawed short-term rentals. Sorry.
Don't worry about it. Just wait.
And there were 5 properties that were already had been used and were properly licensed, which was the critical issue, for short-term rentals. They had state licenses, they had local licenses, they had been paying whatever taxes were appropriate. And there was a determination by, as memorialized in a letter by the city manager at the time, that they were legal non-conforming uses. That's a very specific legal status for a piece of property. It says that you have a legal use that's no longer permitted because the code has changed, but you may continue to operate as you did before because the law recognizes what people generically refer to as vested rights. And so this property has continued to be used pursuant to the city manager's letter since that time. There have been a couple instances, one in 2016, where there was an allegation that the property had been expanded, and we received notices saying you have expanded and you can no longer continue to operate. We met with the city attorney's office, the city manager's office, we met with the building official. We went through an extensive process that lasted almost a year, and it was determined that in fact we had not expanded the use, and that it was still a continuing legal use, and that the building official asked us to make some physical improvements and alarm improvements and other things to the property, which we agreed to do voluntarily, and indeed all of the other properties. The one property that is no longer used as a short-term rental actually was incorporated into a single-family house and was changed to a single-family house. It wasn't that it was sold. It just is no longer being used as short-term rentals. And that was a voluntary act. The letter that we received, the letter was dated August 28th. It was mailed on August 31st, which is the day before Labor Day weekend. We didn't receive it until after Labor Day weekend. We received it on September 4th. Here we stand 8 days later after we got notice. When my client called me, he said, I really don't understand what's going on here. We have never received a single notice of violation with regard to this property. which I found kind of an interesting statement. He said, "We were aware secondarily that there was a party and that there was a police incident at the property, and that the police came out and there was apparently some shots that were fired. Thank goodness nobody was hurt. And that happened once, and we were aware of that, but we have received no notice of any other issues other than," I want to correct that, "other than we've had some alarm violations where the alarm went off, and we paid the fines that are part of your code for false alarms." So I said, well, it really doesn't make sense to me that I see a resolution saying that you're a nuisance if there have been no hearings and no violations and no code enforcement efforts on this piece of property at all. And so we asked the city, and we did not receive the information until 4:15 today, what incidents had occurred on the property and what correspondence there was between the city and my client. In fact, there has been not a single letter, notice of violation, or other notice to my client that there were problems at this property, other than the one police report that we're all aware of. Not a single code enforcement hearing on this property. Not one. Not one notice, not a notice to the property owner. The police were called, there was a party, it was loud noise. Now, when we asked for the information, we did get a list from the city that there were 7 times where there were noise complaints. And when the police officer or the code enforcement officer showed up and said, "You're making too much noise," as they are required to by your code, they gave them notice and said, "You must turn it down." And in each instance, they turned the music down, and so there was no violation. That's the way your code is written. I understand if you're a neighbor, and I will tell you on a personal level, I lived next to a house where they were filming The Real World Miami for a year. And I had 18 people in the house next to me and TV cameras and the whole 9 yards. It does impose on your life. Clearly, we're not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that having any noise violations.
We're not limiting you, but we have to kind of wrap it up.
But
I mean, you can't filibuster this
Mr. Mayor,
tonight.
this is,
Yeah, but you
this is the
cannot
city
filibuster
seeking to
it.
take
I want
away a legal
to bring
property
it to a
right.
close, please, so we can continue the meeting.
I would tell you
Yeah.
that we are entitled to a full and fair quasi-judicial
Yeah.
hearing. This is a zoning issue.
Yes.
It is not a nuisance issue. And if you look at your code deals with nuisances. You have a whole chapter, chapter 12, that deal with nuisances. And they range from overgrown lots to swales, and there's a section on noise. And I want to hand out to you and put into the record and ask you to take notice of your own code provisions with regard to noise. Under Chapter 12, nuisances, section or Article 4, noises, you set forth a number of standards for noise violations. And it appears that there may have been initial violations of those standards at this property on a few occasions. But once again, that section, section 1217 of your code says that when there is a noise violation, it says specifically, violations of these chapter provisions constitute a nuisance and shall be subject to enforcement in accordance with chapter 21 of this code. Chapter 21 of this code is your code enforcement process. There has never been a single notice or code enforcement action on this property. Not one. In order for you to determine that there is a nuisance, it has to go through the code enforcement process, and there needs to be an adjudication that there was a violation of the noise code. Understand, your section on code enforcement specifically requires that when a code enforcement officer or a police officer goes out and there is a alleged violation, that the person is given a reasonable period of time, is what your code says, to comply. And if they comply, it's over. And in the records that were submitted to us by the city today, it shows in your reports that every single time when they were asked to turn down the music, they did. I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form at the end of the day that neighbors should ever be disturbed by noise from this property. So I'm going to put that in the record. I'm going to put your code sections in the record, because if you move forward to revoke these rights, and it is a property right that we have to operate this property as we are not operating a nuisance. I don't believe this council has authority to determine what a nuisance is unless there have been adjudications that there are violations at the property. Not one. Okay? According to your own records. I want you to know, as part of this, though, that our contract that we give to every single person who rents this property, and I'm going to ask to hand everybody a copy of it.
No, I got this.
I want to read you a few of the provisions of this contract that every renter signs. Parties, there are no, capital no parties or gatherings allowed anywhere on the premises. Alcohol is for personal consumption and is not to be distributed or sold by guests on the premises, etc. If a party or gathering is deemed a commercial use, it goes on, tenant, friends, others, the tenant we deemed responsible, charged accordingly and immediately evicted from the premises. But nobody called us and said there's a noise violation. Not one person. We have given the cell phone number of the property manager to adjoining neighbors to call them. All it required was for the city or a neighbor to let us know there was a problem, and we would have removed that tenant that day, that night. Our contract allows us to do that. But if we don't know it's happening, we can't take action. So I ask you to, and what I asked the city attorney before tonight occurred, because we've really been very shorthanded on time to try to, I said, we just got these records at 4:15 today. I asked that it be continued to give us a chance.
Yes, but I think you've made your point. As far as I'm concerned, to make my decision, I've heard all your points, and you referred us to the code, to code enforcement and so forth, and I've pretty much heard enough. I don't know if anybody else.
I believe I have a legal right to make a full record.
No,
to protect my
we
client's
got to
interests,
keep
and if you cut us
going.
off,
We cannot.
It will be a due process
Like I
violation.
said, like I
of my
said,
client's
you
rights.
have made your point. I have acknowledged you that, as far as I'm concerned, you've made your point. So if you've made your point, you've made your point. A public hearing is open, and I'm opening the mic for everybody who wants to be heard on this item. Please come forward.
I object. We've not been given an opportunity to go through the legal
I've heard your
arguments that are
point.
appropriate. I understand you're not going to let me talk.
Good evening, council. My name is Robert Lorenzo. My home address is protected by statute 119, but I do live on the street. I've been living on the street for approximately 19 years. Never have I seen it as worse as it's been in the past couple of years. From my understanding, the property was sold in 2017, in April of 2017. So from my understanding, it shouldn't even be allowed to have this issue that's going on. I was one of the neighbors that ended up calling the police. We ended up having to call the police several times because at that time, in June, there were about 15, 20 cars parked all over the sidewalk, starting from 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. And about the same amount of people outside smoking marijuana being allowed. And it was during a weekday. Most of my neighbors that live on that street, we all have little kids. I have a 6-year-old as well as I have a 2-year-old. We called the police came, tried to get everybody to settle down. Later on, there turned out to be a big violent street fight that happened, that broke out in the middle of the street. And then while the police were en route, somebody pulled out a gun and started firing shots on the street. People shouldn't have to deal with that. So at 1:30 in the morning, I'm running out in the middle of the street with two pistols in my hand, looking to see who's out here shooting, and then looking to see if my kid's windows got shot up. That no parent should be put in a situation like that. No parent whatsoever, and it's absolutely unacceptable. And I have a hard time understanding how and I know it's no fault of you all, how a previous administration can turn a residential neighborhood into a commercial property. It's completely unacceptable. I don't understand how a letter or anything, I mean, at least if you're going to put a letter out like that, granting that wide power, then you would at least send a letter to the neighbors saying, hey, we're going to turn your residential neighborhood into a commercial property. And that's exactly what they're doing. Because a couple times a week, every single week, they're renting it out to different people. Now, I understand council mentioned the MTV house on his street for a year. Okay, well, it's the same people
Nobody's timing this?
Yeah, it's running.
I'm going to make it quick, sir.
Okay.
He has the same people living next to him for 1 year. Well, guess what? A couple times a week, I have different people coming in and out inside of my neighborhood. I don't know who these people are. These people could be all kinds of criminals. They could be, who knows? For the safety of my kids, the safety of my neighbors' kids, the safety of the entire community, somebody has to do something. I mean, and the police have, if I can just have maybe an extra minute, because he took so much time. The police, they've been great, but the police can only do so much with what they have. But it's up to you all, the council, to do something about this, to what is right and what's wrong is wrong. This commercial property has no business inside of a residential neighborhood. So I implore you to please revoke their status. And like I mentioned before, from my understanding, the property sold last year, so this should not be allowed to continue. Thank you.
Hello, Karen DeLeon, 1935 South Hibiscus, president of Keystone Point Homeowners Association. I'm flabbergasted that we haven't figured out a way to take care of this. I'm flabbergasted that there are so many holes. I am holding you guys accountable. This issue has been brought in front of you multiple times. We live in a single-family neighborhood in which we now have bars and hotels and trash yards next to us. There has to be a way to shut this down. The county commissioner went about regulating in the county where short-term rentals exist, that there are rules and regs in place where those short-term rentals are monitored. They have to have proper insurance. The gentleman mentioned that this is properly licensed. We have a license for this? So on the one hand, of course I want you to shut it down. On the other hand, I don't want you to have a lawsuit. There is intelligence in this room. There has got to be a way that we figure out how to create regulations so the moment a gun is brought into one of these properties, it's done. Unfortunately, you don't have those rules on the books right now. I expect you guys to figure out a way going forward, if you can't do it now, that there are rules in place that when the police come out, that it gets put forth to a report, because there is no code enforcement officer out at night. There has to be a way to streamline this. And while the gentleman said the noise complaint was taken care of, having been someone that has called in noise complaints, I can tell you they're not taken care of. But people get tired, they've somehow managed to fall asleep. It's just not that simple. So as the representative for Keystone, where 5 of these properties do remain, I do ask that we not just look at this one property, we look at all of them and figure out a way going forward that we're not all going to a funeral instead of having this conversation.
Good evening, Council. My name is Lori Sabel. I reside in 12455 North Bayshore Drive. I don't know the gentleman's name, the representative. I don't know if the owner is here tonight, but I can tell you I've had the misfortune of being a neighbor across the street to this party house for the last 5.5 years. And let me tell you, it is not allegedly that we have noise complaints, no parties. I witness this on a weekly basis. I shudder every time there's a long weekend because, God forbid, who knows who's coming into town. It is not one family of 5 or 6 people that stay there. We have parties that are tens, maybe even hundreds of people in the streets, parking all over. They park on my swale for 4 to 5 days in a row without moving the cars ever, with leaving their trash behind, glass bottles, all kinds of drugs all over. We see it all the time. And just like my neighbor Rob, I also have young children. They are 2 and 5 years old. The night of June, what you said it was an alleged shooting, well, let me tell you something, sir. I witnessed the shooting myself, looking out the window. So this, in fact, did happen. It's not an alleged situation. The thought of having to run to my daughter's bedrooms in the middle of the night to see if they had been shot is the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. There is no way that this is acceptable. I don't know who this owner is. I don't know their name. I know it's some kind of corporation of some kind. This person is not living there, and he certainly doesn't have to witness what I do every single week. So I urge the council to please do whatever legal actions you need to do to make sure that this is a problem that's gone for good. Not just the home on Keystone Road, but all the other short-term properties in Keystone Point. And thank you for your time, everyone.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michelle Togno, and I live at 11930 North Bay Shore Drive, but I grew up in Keystone Point. I actually grew up across from a house that was a madam's house that experienced the same thing with the guns and the shooting, and we had to stay low and everything. So I really think that we need to take care of this. It's not just one house. There's lots of houses in Keystone. And also, whoever the owner is, it seems funny to me that you're paying the alarm bills that are going off, the fines, but you don't know anything that's going on about the property. Now that says a lot to me. So how did you find out about those alarm bills?
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Howard Tonkin, 12600 Griffin Boulevard. I would hope that you would deal with this property situation, and as well as that, all the other properties in our city that have these party houses. We have the party house over in Griffin Park Estates that you'll have 100 or more vehicles parked and girls in bikinis in the middle of the night running around in the street, people smoking marijuana out on the street in front of everybody with his kids in the neighborhood. There is God knows what going on at that house in my neighborhood, so I have a lot of empathy for what's going on in Keystone, but it's not just the Keystone party houses. It should be something that's dealt with citywide, because it is all different kinds of people coming to our city, staying in residential neighborhoods where you want kids to be safe, and having an extensive experience in the nightlife industry, seeing what's going on with my own eyes. I know exactly what's going on in these properties, and it's just unacceptable in a residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Burns, 2065 Alameda Drive. When the city attorney in 2009 was directed to come up with an ordinance because these short-term rentals were starting to pop up all over the city, the city attorney came to the city council with an ordinance. We had public hearing, and it was confirmed to the sitting council at the time that these 5 were the only ones that were going to be grandfathered in. And it was the intent of the ordinance that once they were sold, their short-term rental use went away. The council voted on it, and that's what it's supposed to be. There's actually some of these houses, I don't know if those, but there's actually 5 houses that are listed on LoopNet as rental, short-term rentals, as a group of 5 homes that are for sale, saying that they're properly licensed to operate as short-term rentals. The city doesn't give licenses. When this came up, we knew that they were licensed by the state of Florida for a hotel tax or something, but the city of North Miami never issued a occupational license authorizing anybody to operate a short-term rental. Second of all, I have a Airbnb 2 doors down from my house. Uber's there every 3 days. There's a mechanic shop in the same house on the other side. There's lots of this going on in the city. I don't know who's watching out for it, who's answering the complaints. But the intent of that particular ordinance, and whether it was written that way or whether it was being enforced that way, that once the house changed ownership, that we would no longer allow short-term rentals. And the only one of you that was up there at the time is Mr. Galvin, and I think, Scott, you actually brought it up because of the numerous complaints, and the city attorney directed us how to curb this abuse. Thank you.
Alrighty. Public hearing is still open, but I see none, hear none. Public hearing is closed. We come to the dais for further.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there's one issue I would like to address. Your ordinance does not in any place state that the non-conforming status is personal to the owner and that it gets eliminated upon the sale of the property.
Okay.
There are ordinances that do that. Yours do not.
Okay.
Mr.
Go ahead. Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll defer to the maker of the item, but I do have a couple of questions. Go ahead, Councilman.
Obviously, when the 2009 letter was put forward by Mr. Patterson, rest his soul, Airbnb and that whole industry didn't exist. So obviously what it now is 10 years later, the attorney does rightfully point out we should look at how our programs are put in place, and we should look at licensure. We don't have our own licenses, so maybe we should adopt some, and, you know, you can't do that.
Yeah, so Florida statute.
We're preempted?
We are preempted.
Okay, there you go.
And
any
you
rule
may
that we
ask
would
me-
create now would probably open us up to having our
Right, so
preemption revoked.
Before we get into discussion, you may have questions that I may not answer tonight, obviously because we are now in a litigation posture. Right.
So why is this in front of it for any
Because you still have to make a decision.
Right, it's in
Okay.
front because shots were fired. That's why.
Okay.
That's why I brought this forward. Shots were
So you
fired.
say there is a litigation process in place?
No. They
He's
haven't
just threatened to
filed the
sue us.
He just- I
He's
just
just
heard him-
threatened to sue us.
Right, that's
So
fine. The
I'm
attorney
not gonna give you legal advice.
We get sued
on
every
how we're
day,
gonna do
Yeah.
it.
Mr. Attorney.
I'd rather not.
We get sued every day.
But
That's what governments are for.
I would
Governments are for
rather not
lawsuits.
give you my litigation
Go ahead. I mean,
strategy.
Gotcha,
in
gotcha.
public.
anybody who wants to sue North Miami, just take a number.
To
Okay?
clarify, though-
Take a number.
To clarify,
no.
though,
There is a process here too.
there's not.
This is a meeting.
But Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go
just
ahead.
through the city attorney, to clarify, there is not an actual lawsuit at this stage. Although I did hear the attorney say
Yeah.
he's going to sue us, there's not one right now.
Before we got here, we had the discussion. They're likely to sue us.
But
That's
there is
fine.
not a.
There is
a-
no lawsuit right now.
At
right.
this moment,
Yes.
okay. I'd like to cross-examine the attorney.
Can you do that?
Okay.
Good idea. So
Then
if
I
it's
will,
not a quasi
at
judicial,
the
it's not a
advice
quasi
of my
judicial.
own, at the advice of my own attorney, I will not cross-examine or offer any questions. I'll only offer an opinion.
You may be seated, sir.
I'll only offer an opinion. The fact that a single shot was fired and you were aware of it and have done nothing since that point to abate the problem means, in my personal opinion, that you're party to the problem. One shot fired is too many shots fired at a rental facility. You were given a golden egg that was a wonderful moneymaker, and because of your irresponsibility, I'm ready to vote tonight to revoke your ability to operate. One shot, two shots, or however many shots were fired, too many shots fired.
For what it's worth.
I'm not.
Please, hold your applauses.
No, at Mr.
Hold your
Mr.
applauses,
Mr.
please.
We agree
Wait,
there should be
no,
no shots fired.
Thank you. I'm glad you acknowledged they were fired.
Okay, thank you. Please hold your applauses. Anybody else? Mr. Dezulme.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm good.
I thought you said you were going to go
I,
next.
I did, but as the the
Okay.
maker of the motion, I think I've heard enough from both sides.
Since you said there is a potential lawsuit, so there is no
Yeah.
need for us to say anything.
We just wrote,
Okay?
I'd
So,
like to move to immediately revoke the ability to short-term rental the home on Keystone Road, effective as soon as this vote is taken this evening.
question. Yeah. I just have a question. Are we able to do that?
That's what I'm asking us to
That's
do.
what you- oh, that's what
No,
you-
there is a
that's
second,
fine.
there is a
Gotcha.
second. Nice
Never
one, it's
mind.
for
Okay.
discussion.
I'll second.
For discussion, Michael.
No, it's been second by.
Huh?
It's been second, but I do have a question if nobody else does. If for the city attorney.
You said you can't answer.
Oh, we can't.
I said there may be questions that you asked me tonight that I may not answer. So you can still ask me the question, I just may not answer.
But you realize you still have a duty to us as our attorney right now, because they might walk out of here and never sue us. And if you didn't grant us legal opinion, then we're lacking in that legal opinion. In the moment.
But the attorney
Just ask me the
stated.
questions.
Okay, the attorney stated in his argument that there had not been any code enforcement violation notices ever during the entire
As I said
process.
at the beginning of this process.
Has there been any?
If you notice, we didn't bring a resolution to remove the short-term rental status of all the properties.
Mhm.
For some of the reasons that he brought up. As I said in the beginning, this is under the police powers of the city. At some point, the city has to act. I mean, the argument
City
that
has
we
to.
have to wait till someone gets shot.
Yeah, but
and then
I
have
would
a
like
board-
no,
I mean,
please, sir. Have a seat. You cannot talk
there are-
twice. No, sorry.
There is the city has police powers, and that's what we're saying. This isn't zoning. I mean, that's their argument. Our argument is going to be: we are a city, we are a government, we have an obligation to our residents. Shots were fired at this property. This is a serious matter. Seems to be a matter that is not abating. This
I
happens
know about
on a
the
regular
shots.
basis.
Remember, okay,
So
let me make
we're
an
acting on our
analogy.
police powers.
Let me make an analogy. You remember when we had the problem with the Spotmaster? Spotmaster and so forth. But every time, there was a file. There was a file of code enforcement, being called and going there every week or every so often. All I want to know is that do we have a track record of code enforcement going to that property for noise problems?
Mr. Mayor, through you, staff.
No,
I'm
I
not.
mean,
I'm as the
if-
maker of what's before us tonight, as the sponsor. I'm not sponsoring this because of any potential code violations. I'm sponsoring.
I'm
it
just
because
asking.
shots
But I would
were
like to
fired.
know if I'm going to vote on an item. I would like to know some history of certain things. I mean, if there has been, if code enforcement had gone there and made any reports or whatsoever, I would like to know.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Mayor and Council, Crystal Cordo, Code Compliance Manager. I know for sure that we've been out, especially with regard to that one incident. With regards to whether or not what action was taken, I don't have that with me tonight.
It's the police too.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll come back to the motion I started to make a few moments ago. I'd move that we immediately revoke the ability to conduct short-term rentals at this Keystone Road property effective immediately.
It was already second?
Yeah, so we did have a
Yes.
motion from Councilman Galvin to approve tab G. The motion was seconded by Councilman Bieneme. So would you like me to get a roll call vote in, or?
Whatever you want.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Item passes with a 4-1 vote. Tab I, proposed ordinance, second reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending volume 1, goals, objectives, and policies of the city of North Miami 2016 comprehensive plan in accordance with the requirements of section 163.3184, subsection 3, Florida statutes 2017, and chapter 29, article 3, Division 11, Section 3-1102A, and Sections 3-1105 through 3-1110 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, specifically by amending the future land use element to 1, create a new special development and transit overlay district with related goals, objectives, and policies in furtherance of the vision of the Regional Activity Center, and at policy 1.21 to establish maximum density and height for the new overlay district, further amending the future land use map to reflect the boundary of the new overlay, providing for an initial hearing and subsequent transmittal of the proposed text and map amendments to the reviewing agencies and or any interested local government or governmental agency for review under the expedited state review process, providing for an adoption hearing and subsequent transmit of the proposed amendments and supporting data and analysis as may be amended to respond to comments from the reviewing agencies to the state land planning agency for a determination of completeness, providing for repeal, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. For the record again, Tanya Wilson Sejour. This is a request for approval for an ordinance for comprehensive plan amendment. It's a second reading on this ordinance. The council may recall this item was reviewed and voted on back in June 12th of this year. Staff was given direction to transmit to the Department of Economic Opportunity for review and comments, recommendations, or objection as the statutes require. The city did transmit and we received no comments, absolutely no comments from the state, also no objections. So the recommendation from DEO is that the city can proceed with the comprehensive plan amendment to create this overlay district within the city. If the council has any questions at this time, staff is available to respond.
It's a quasi-judicial?
Yeah.
If anyone intend to be heard on this particular item, please rise and raise your right hand so I can swear you in. And I'm assuming that it's tab J. Quasi-judicial as well. So if anyone intend to be heard on tabs I and tabs J, please rise so I can swear you in.
I and J.
There we go. All right. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. All right, Mayor, everyone who is standing has duly been sworn.
Wait. Did you take pictures?
Yeah.
You should do a video.
All right, public hearing is now open on the item. That's item I, as in Irene. This is the second reading. I think the last time was when it was first presented was at our last meeting.